Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Prep Rally, a high school sports podcast produced by the Daily Journal. I'm Brad Locke, along with Gene Phelps, your co-host, and another episode. It's Wednesday, and that's when this new podcast drops. This is the third episode, Gene, and thanks for
It
joining me
feels like
again.
103.
It's not that bad. Special thanks, by the way, to the Tupelo High Drumline. If you're listening to this, the podcast version, we've got an intro now. And the Tupelo High Drumline was kind enough to help us out by recording that. Otherwise, maybe you're watching right now on this live webcast, which we do as well. And if you missed the live webcast, you can go back and watch it because it's a Google Hangout, so you can watch the replay. We are on iTunes now, so good news there. You can access the podcast on iTunes. We're still working on getting it on the Android apps, but also at preprally.djournal.com, and follow the show on Twitter at djournalpreps. We got a good show coming up here, Gene. Got a special guest coming in, John Davis. In fact, let's go ahead and bring him in. John, hey.
How are you?
Good, man. How's it going?
Oh, it's going well. I'm sitting up and doing work, so that means it's a good day. Anytime you can be doing work, it's a good day.
John is the sports editor of the Oxford Citizen, one of our sister publications. John, you were in Hattiesburg this past weekend. Let's talk about the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star football game. Mississippi finally winning, breaking a 7-game losing streak. They won, 28-21. First time to play the game in Mississippi. So, John, it's kind of a big day overall, wasn't it? What was the kind of the atmosphere down there?
Well, I wrote in the story for the Journal that it turned into a party. I think I wrote platform, but basically a party. I mean, it was seconds after the game, instant, feeling of we've really accomplished something historic. That was a word used by Coach Breland, by the players who knew the significance of it all.
Right.
So I think that it was a fantastic event. I wrote a story about Johnny Mims for my Around the Square, which is what I call my Sunday column. And 15 years in the making, he's been trying to get this here and really pushed hard on it the last 2 years. It's always been in Alabama and Mobile, and then Montgomery most recently prior to Hattiesburg. And I think Johnny Mims and Don Hinton from the MHSA deserve a lot of credit for what they were able to do to get it here, and just a fantastic job by the team Mississippi to prepare for it and then execute and break the 7-game losing streak.
A couple of local guys did pretty well. A couple of receivers, A.J. Brown of Starkville, D.K. Metcalf of Oxford. I think they combined for 288 receiving yards,
Correct.
John. I mean, they really put on display the talent at the skill level position there. And they didn't have Jack Abraham to throw him the ball either. But
and Alabama would have gotten beat worse. And I really don't mean that as a disrespect to them. I just think that's how good Jack is. And obviously he's when the guy like Metcalf scores 2 touchdowns and has 151 yards receiving from a quarterback he's only had 6 or 7 practices with, what does he do with a guy that he's played with his entire career? So I really firmly believe that Mississippi would have won that game. It probably would have been the most lopsided win in their history if Jack played. He was unfortunately injured against Wayne County in the Class 5A title game. But Brown and Metcalf were co-MVPs, and they were fantastic. And it's funny. They won the MVP award, but I think as a group, the defensive line for Team Mississippi had been the story all week, and they were rock solid. They were rock solid against the Alabama guys as well. So I think that there's no doubt that Brown and Metcalf were fantastic, but even bigger than that, the defensive line came through and played very well. And that was what has always decided these games, is the line of scrimmage. Some years, offensive line's been really good for Alabama. Some years, the defensive line's been really good. Some years that they've had both. This is the one time that Mississippi was clearly better than them, at least on one side of the ball on the line of scrimmage standpoint.
Yeah, JD, it was nice to have the game in Mississippi for once, too. I don't know if it's any kind of home field advantage because none of those kids had played at that stadium, and Mississippi kids all had to travel to a camp, too. But I just think most of the time the talent wins out.
Yeah, this game's about talent, and that's why it's such a big game for the recruiting guys that do it 24 hours and 7 days a week to come down and see it. And, of course, I try to be in the middle of that, years before Rivals and Scout emerged, and it's really only been about the last 12, 13 years. Newspapers were kind of the only way you could find recruiting. Well, I still try to be that way, and I guess the whole point is this game's always about talent. And there's about, let's say there's 40 kids basically on both teams. So 80 kids, half those kids are Division I big time players. And maybe more. There's years where there's some more. There's a thought too that there's 2 or 3 maybe defensive linemen from Team Mississippi that play in the NFL. So, Deuce McAllister told the boys on Friday morning that in the 1997 game, when it was still played in the summer, Gene, and you remember this, he had 11 guys off his team, including himself. He was one of the 11 that went on to play in the NFL, a cup of coffee or longer, still playing in the NFL, and then 2 others that went on to the major leagues and actually played in the major leagues, not just the minor leagues. So talking about 13 kids off Team Mississippi, 1997, having a professional standpoint as far as an athlete, which is an amazing stat, especially for a state that is basically 2.7 million people per capita. Mississippi is as good as any. In fact, it's arguably the best in the union as far as producing overall talent from a football standpoint.
And we've got another all-star game coming up this weekend, Gene, not as high profile, but the Bernard Blackwell Classic. I know we've got several area players who'll be playing for the North squad. Just real quick, Gene, who's some guys to kind of watch in that one?
Well, in this game, this is the original All-Star game, the North-South. VJ Miller, of course, quarterback from Mitawamba, was selected when Jack went out, Abraham went out, and he played in the Alabama-Mississippi game. He was actually wasn't replaced on the roster. He was by Jimmy Greaser, Oxford wide receiver. They already had 3 quarterbacks on the team. This Dan Ellington from Center Hill is going. They were going to use him in some other positions, but now he's a quarterback. But we got Broderick Boyd, running back from New Albany, and Terry Squinn, another quarterback who's listed as a DB for this game from Corinth. Right. I mean, if they needed him, he could certainly play. Denver McQuarrie from Houston, a really outstanding state record holder for interceptions in a career at 33. Daniel Freppon, linebacker from Mitawamba. So I've got a lot of kids from the area, probably about 9 or 10, who will play for the North, and head coach Pat Bird from Saltillo is the North head coach. So
okay, good deal. And that's on Saturday.
That'll be Saturday at 11:30 at Gulfport at Milner Stadium. The game will not be televised, but in my preview story, I don't have the information right here. It will be online.
Okay, good deal. Let's go back to John Davis real quick. John, we spoke about Jack Abraham earlier. Of course, he missed the Mississippi-Alabama game with the broken collarbone he suffered near the end of the state 5A championship game, and was in the news this week. He withdrew his commitment from Tulane. He had committed to Tulane a while back, but they changed coaches. And right. John, was it just he didn't like the system the new coach brought in?
Well, I don't think it was as much as he didn't like the system. Yes, I mean that's an accurate answer. In fact, I was eating lunch with the family Friday when it was official, when word had come out not too long before that Tulane had new coach, Georgia Southern's coach. It's Fritz. I can't remember. For some reason,
Willie Fritz, isn't it?
There you go, Willie Fritz.
Yeah.
And he came over from Georgia Southern. And once that kind of broke, they knew, okay, this guy's run option at Georgia Southern. Apparently, that's what he's going to do. They did not hear from him until Sunday night. They originally got a call from a graduate assistant on Sunday, and then Fritz called him back and just said, look, this is not going to work out. This is not your style. It's not,
Yeah.
not something we want to do. So there was a mutual agreement to let it go. And he came out on Twitter, and I retweeted it. His father and I have done a lot together. This was the man that created the Buccaneers, the premier, youth league area, North Mississippi. I mean, you ask anybody, the Oxford Buccaneers are one of the best programs anywhere in the state, and Jack's father was the one that helped get that going, and he was honored during an Oxford game even this year. So I've known him for a lot of years, done stories on them, and this is a tough deal because quarterbacks typically when they commit, they stick. And he committed way back in April to Curtis Johnson, who came from the University of Miami tree of throwing the ball in the New Orleans Saints, and pro style, at the very least spread to throw type mentality, and it was going to fit him well as get a good education, and that's not the case anymore. So now he's left to see what's out there, and the reality of it is there's not as much out there as you would think. Because, again, quarterback is one position. Usually schools only sign one per year. It's not like offensive lineman where you get 4 and 5 in a year. Yeah. It's just, and it's all about skill and system and size and this and that. So, I wish him the best, and I think he's gonna come out smelling like a rose because he's such a winner. But right now, I think that the best thing I can tell you is to be patient. And as Christmas turns to New Year and New Year turns to January, I think we'll know a lot more in that part of the calendar as opposed to right this very minute.
Yeah, I'm sure with the season and the career he's had at Oxford, Jack Abraham will have suitors, and we'll wind up somewhere where someone can use them. John Davis, appreciate you taking a few minutes here with us, man. We'll let you get back to whatever else you need to be doing and continue on with the podcast, but appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, you all take care. See ya.
See ya. All right.
Brad, you hear about quarterbacks that don't maybe have the size, but I can think of a couple. Tyson Lee, who played in the SEC at Mississippi State. Romero Miller, 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah.
Played in the SEC for Ole Miss. So if a player's got talent, he can work within the system.
Yeah.
They list Drew Brees at 6 foot. I think they're being generous.
And how big is Jack? Remind me.
I would say Jack's about 5'10".
Okay. So anyway, we'll see what happens there with Jack Abraham. Let's switch gears now here on Prep Rally to some hoopage. Gene, you were at a game last night. Boonville and Faulkner, and Boonville's girls off to a good start. They won state last year in 3A, and
no, they actually finished runner-up.
It was Belmont that beat them last year. They won the year before.
They did,
because Belmont and Boonville have met each of the last 2 years in the final.
Yeah,
and but last year it was Belmont. Okay,
right.
But Boonville off to another good start. They looking like they're going to have a shot at getting back there.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're probably I think they're the best team in Northeast Mississippi. And we've got them rated number 1 in our rankings, and they'll be number 1 again tomorrow when we do our rankings again. They're just by far the most talented team, and a lot of those kids that are on this team now played on that team that won the state championship 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they only lost on a last-second shot last year to Belmont. They went through a lot of injuries and illness and things last year, a lot of things that people don't know about, the coach didn't talk about.
Yeah.
But most of those kids are healthy right now, knock on wood, and they've also got a girl who transferred in from Biggersville, Ellie Nash.
I was going to ask you about her. Came in from Biggersville. She's a sophomore, and last night in the win had a big game and kind of played the way Coach Michael Smith wants her to, didn't she?
Yeah, he's looking at her defensively and things, and she actually took a charge last night. She took a couple more, but they got her for foul. But
I assume that's kind of a big step for her.
It is. Yeah. It is, and she's really a good offensive player. She's got a lot of finesse, and they'll need that. She's kind of the missing link for this team. She gives them a solid player inside. She's just a sophomore. She's playing under a good coach. I'll tell you what, they've got some tests coming up starting this week. Right before the holidays, they play Etowah AHS, which is ranked number 5 in our rankings. They're playing Ingomar which is number 4, and they play Tupelo High, which is number 2 right now.
Wow.
In the journal rank. So they play those 3 teams between now and Christmas Day.
Wow. Wow.
So they will be tested. They could lose all 3. They could win all 3. And he's looking forward to the challenge because their schedule hadn't been as tough.
Yeah.
And of course, they've got a Dallas Young playing point guard this year. She's played shooting guard.
Right.
She's, in her stats, she's averaging about 15 a game, and she scored 15 last night. But her stats have been affected by the fact that she sat out second halves of a lot of games this year.
Okay. Okay. Any other big games we need to look for this weekend, Gene?
We've got plenty. I've got a copy of the schedule here on my phone, just of a game in games in Booneville.
Yeah.
This weekend you've got the Tupelo and Ingomar girls play at 4:00 Friday.
Wow.
In the Booneville
That'd be
tournament.
a fun matchup.
It will be. You got a really athletic team against. I'd say Ingomar's pretty athletic and they're tough.
Okay.
And they're all underclassmen. Booneville, Itawamba girls play that night at 7.
Yeah.
So there's that matchup I was telling you about.
Right.
Saturday, you've got Itawamba Tupelo girls are playing. You got the Booneville Ingomar girls are playing. Ingomar, Itawamba boys. That'll be a good balanced matchup. Holly Springs, Velma Jackson boys. That'd be a good one to watch at 2:30. So just check the journal, check our schedules. We're putting in tournament games and stuff as we get them. So, and Tupelo's having a tournament this weekend. You've got Starkville and Pontotoc boys are playing, and I believe Provine and Tupelo boys are playing Friday or Saturday. I can't remember. Check the journal.
Okay. Yeah. Check the journal, the Daily Journal, and look for coverage of some of those games this weekend as well as we kind of get into the holiday season.
I hate that I'm missing those. I'm going to the North-South game, the Blackwell game.
Right.
And so we'll have some other reporters hopefully out in the field covering those.
Okay, and we got a new segment we're gonna start doing here on Prep Rally, Gene. Athlete of the Week.
Okay.
Kind of recognize someone who's done particularly well on the court, on the field, whatever.
Well, I'll tell you, this week I covered a game Saturday.
Yeah.
And at Oxford, the Oxford boys and Jarkel Joyner, they're really fine guard, scored 43 points in a double overtime win against Two Rivers, Arkansas. Really phenomenal player.
43 points. That's not bad.
He was scoring. He was scoring inside, outside.
And we've obviously written about him in the past.
We have.
Very promising, very good player.
Right,
overall.
right. I know Brandon Speck and I both had stories on him this summer.
That's right. That's right.
He may have had one before the season. I can't remember. I know I went over to talk with Drew when they were playing in a jamboree type thing in summer league over at ICC. But
I remember reading about him.
Mm-hmm. He's really a phenomenal player and is only going to get better. And that Oxford team's pretty good now. Once they get DK Metcalf back.
Oh yeah.
And they've got Will Swindle, who's playing. He's going to be in the North-South game this week, and big offensive line. But he's got some finesse inside and out. So the better Oxford plays, the more it helps Jarkel.
Oh yeah,
and allows him to do more things. They don't need him scoring 43.
Yeah.
He needs to be.
Yeah.
He's averaging about 25.
What year is he?
He's a junior.
Jarkel Joyner, Athlete of the Week. And hey, we'll take nominations for Athlete of the Week.
Sure.
You can email the show, preprally@journalinc.com. You can tweet at us at DJournalPreps. So, just if somebody's having a good week, if somebody has a couple of big games, drop us a line. Let us know. We'll take it into consideration. That's it for the show, everybody. Gene?
All right.
Good job. Again, follow us on Twitter at DJournalPreps. Follow Gene on Twitter at Gene Phelps. I'm at Brad Locke. And remember, we're on iTunes now, and you can also listen at preprally.djournal.com. And if you missed any of this webcast, hey, go back and replay it. Okay? So good show, Gene. And just a note, programming note, no show next week. It'll be almost Christmas. I'll be out of town. We'll be back might not be back for until after the new year. We'll have to see about that. But until next time, whenever that is, y'all have a good day.